Hello, I'm Dr. Michael Berry. I'm a registered psychologist and the clinical director of HBR. And today I'm going to talk about building supportive relationships. Now, getting sober entails a lot of work on your end. Learning new coping skills, perhaps healing from past traumas, setting new goals, and so on. But as much as you are in control of your own sobriety, the people you surround yourself with can have a real impact on whether you're able to keep up with your goals or whether you risk kind of falling back into old habits. Relationships are important. As the saying goes, you can tell a lot about a person based on who they hang out with. In this video, I'll be talking to you about how to identify healthy people who can be good allies that will support your sobriety and your recovery. How to ask for help and manage expectations. And finally, I'm going to give you some tips on how to communicate effectively with the people around you. So reassessing the quality and type of your relationships can be a difficult thing. Even when you know someone isn't good for you, it can be pretty hard to admit it to yourself and to maybe cut ties with that person or that group of people. And while I understand that letting go isn't easy, I'm going to ask you to be honest with yourself. Can you really pursue your goal to stay abstinent and recover if you still hang out with people who enable you or cause you unnecessary hurt? So what should you be looking for in people who will be a good influence and be supportive of your recovery? Well, I think people who have your best interest at heart, people who are understanding of your condition that you can communicate with, people who support your decision to be abstinent and who don't shy away from keeping you honest and raising concerns with you. Basically, people who are trying to be healthy in their own lives as well. Also, it's important to actually have things in common, things that you enjoy, where you can spend time with them. A person may have wonderful qualities that would make them an excellent support, but if you don't click as friends, then there's no need to force it. Familiarity can help with this, like becoming friends with someone that you share a hobby with, or where you go to the same types of places, do the same types of things. Become closer perhaps to family members that you like. That's a good option as well. When you surround yourself with people who are doing well and who are living a healthy lifestyle, especially when it comes to not having addictive behaviors, that will have a big impact on you. Maybe try to hang out with people who you see as quote unquote having their shit together. You'll constantly want to get your shit together as well. It's a positive influence, a positive form of feedback. In your pursuit to find good, healthy people to surround yourself with, it's important to keep in mind that relationships are a two-way street. You have to ask yourself what you can bring to the table for the other person, as well as what you can get from that relationship. Presumably, you aren't just looking for someone to serve as an emotional crutch for you. You want to create a true and authentic relationship where it's possible both to ask for help and to provide support and help to the other person. And you'll have to open up with that person. You'll have to encourage them to open up with you. Ask them how things are going. Try to be there for them in a way that's healthy for you and that's supportive towards them. It's also about trying to strike a balance, trying to be present for the other person, trying to invite them to be involved in your life without pressuring them, without overwhelming them. You want to make sure that they feel wanted, but you don't want to overwhelm them with constant requests for support or imposing needs on them that they just can't meet. You can try to let them know that you appreciate them in your friendship. It's always a good idea to communicate the things that you like and the things that you value. Taking a minute to reflect, what are the qualities that you value in another person? Are there already people in your life that are good influences on you, who support you? And what are some of the qualities or attributes that you might be better to avoid or set boundaries with? Having someone or having a group of people in your life you can rely on when things get tough is a wonderful thing. But I've also noticed in my practice that people can be at times either too hesitant or too quick to ask for help from others. I'm a strong believer that before you ask for help from another person, it's important to ground yourself in self-reliance, self-soothing, and good self-care practices first. This really comes down to knowing your own limits a little better and identifying times when it's appropriate to reach out for help versus times when you might be able to actually handle things on your own and trust yourself to take care of yourself. Now, not asking for help or asking for help too much can certainly lead to uncomfort, and it can lead to an imbalance in the relationship that can be tricky to overcome. I'll ask, have you ever noticed yourself to avoid asking for help at times when maybe you should ask for help? Or maybe you're the kind of person who goes overboard, asking for help or expecting others to support you when you'd be better off supporting yourself. In either case, how have these tendencies had an impact on your relationships? Let's take some time to reflect on what your triggers are, what you feel like when you're in distress, what sort of behaviors you engage in, and what you currently find appropriate to ask for help for. The more aware you become of what you are and are not able to handle, the better you'll be able to gauge when to ask for help. In moments where you're thinking of asking for a friend or a family member perhaps to help you, first try asking yourself what you'd actually like to receive from them, what it is you're asking for, and whether or not you think it is A, actually going to be helpful for you, and B, reasonable for the other person to actually do for you. When you're considering asking for help, here are some things to consider. First, is the person capable of giving you what you want? Does the type of relationship that you have with this person make it appropriate for you to ask them for what you want? Do you have the skills to handle the situation yourself, to deal with this on your own? And how will asking for help affect your short and long-term goals? Will it foster independence? Will it foster reliance? Or will it help you to move forward? Do you have a good give and take balance in this relationship? Does it feel like a two-way street? And is this a good time to ask for help? Let me give you two examples of situations where someone is either too reluctant or too eager to ask for help. I'll take the hypothetical client, we'll call this person Jamie. Jamie has had a rough week at work and is feeling down. He would usually go to have some drinks to unwind and forget about the week, but he's trying really hard to stay sober, and he feels really lonely. He'd like to get out of the house and go spend a day at the beach this weekend with a friend, but he doesn't want to risk being grumpy at the outing. He doesn't want to risk being a downer. So instead, he decides to spend the weekend alone fighting the urge to drink. In this scenario, I believe it would have been reasonable for Jamie to reach out to a friend and connect. You don't always have to be in the best mood to spend time with a good friend. In this kind of situation, you can ask someone to hang out, and you can kind of give them a little bit of a warning, tell them that you had a bit of a rough week and you might not be at 100%, but you'd still love their company and you'd still like to do something together. The request Jamie has is totally reasonable. Having a beach day is a fun activity. That's definitely doable for somebody, even if you may need some extra attention or you aren't in the best mood. It's worthwhile. Being honest about your feelings up front and expressing how it would help to spend some time with someone is all you really need to do in a situation like that to make sure the other person knows what's going on with you and so that they can kind of plan accordingly and anticipate what it'll be like. It also relieves you from feeling pressured to act in a certain kind of way or from trying to hide your emotions. Let's take a different scenario. Jamie has been having a rough week at work and is feeling down. Towards the end of the week, His boss pulls him aside to raise some concerns. Jamie doesn't take this well. He's already had a bad week and he gets really upset. He excuses himself to go to the bathroom and immediately calls a friend to vent and asks to come get him or else he's going to have a drink. In this situation, Jamie is really not doing the most healthy thing. Here we see Jamie experiencing distress because of the work situation, and that's a normal thing. It's going to happen from time to time. The problem is that for this context, his outburst is really not helpful. It's really not even appropriate. He might think that by dumping his emotions onto someone else, he'll feel better, but he hasn't tried to take care of himself first, or downregulate, or take care of his emotions before reaching out to his friend. Additionally, in this scenario, he's kind of threatened his friend a little bit that if his friend isn't there for him in the way he wants, then he's going to be at risk of drinking. This is putting the responsibility of his recovery on the other person, and it's not helpful to anyone. Now, this sort of response is often quick. It's not always well thought out, and a different course of action might be for Jamie to excuse himself, try to calm down, do some breathing work, try to fit in a little meditative moment, and plan for what he's going to do when he gets off work. Basically, taking a more patient approach and tolerating distress. By the time his day is over, he can then reevaluate how he's feeling, think about what would help him the most. He could try to journal, he could try blowing off some steam by going for a run, and then if he still wanted to chat with a friend and debrief and kind of get some feedback and input, he could text a friend asking if they're available for a call and that he just does want to kind of vent and open up about a few things for a bit. That gives the friend the opportunity to decide whether that's something that they have bandwidth for right now or something that maybe they could provide later or something that they might not be able to provide at all. So, what kind of situation do you find appropriate to ask for help? When you've received help in the past, what was that experience like? Something to prepare for whenever we ask for help is the possibility that the person we reach out to may not be available or may not be able to assist you in the way that you expect or want. It can be upsetting to hear, especially if you're already having trouble or if you're in distress. And I've often seen clients interpret it as a sign that the other person doesn't care about them. It's understandable that they might assume the worst in these kind of situations. There's actually a term in psychology called the negativity bias, which means that you're more likely to interpret something that actually might be kind of neutral, such as somebody else being unavailable, as meaning something negative. For example, that they don't care about you. But in these moments, I'd encourage you to try to stick with the facts. Just look at the event objectively. What did they really say? Was there a reason for them to be unavailable? If so, please try to put your trust in them. You can't read their mind, so you can't really reinterpret what they've said. It's not in your own best interests. If they were unable to answer your call or text, try not to assume anything until they get back to you. It would be best to give them a chance to kind of explain what's going on when they have an opportunity to do that. It probably isn't as bad as you might be assuming in the first place. So, how would you deal with the possibility that they said they do not want to help for whatever reason? In this situation, it's a question of trying to respect the other person's boundaries and accepting that things don't always go your way and people aren't always able to meet your needs or wants. Maybe the person that you contacted is going through a rough time themselves. Maybe they don't have the energy to be there for you right now, or maybe they don't feel able or equipped to support you in the way that they think that you need. Whatever the reason, it's important to just accept their decision and maybe move on to plan B. Use your own distress tolerance skills, for instance. If you haven't already, you can see the 2 videos on distress tolerance and you can learn a bit more about techniques that you can use for self-reliance. You can use them to kind of calm yourself down in moments of distress without needing anybody else to get involved. So, have you ever reached out to someone and they were unable to help? How did that feel for you and how did you cope? How would you cope if this were happening to you now? Okay, we've spoken a bit about communication, but I would like to delve into this topic a little deeper. Effective communication and being there for others is a key component to creating and maintaining good relationships that are built on that two-way street that I referenced earlier. I'm a fan of using acronyms to try to remember skills, so let me introduce you to one. You can use something called the GIVE skill, G-I-V-E, which stands for be gentle, act interested, try to validate the other person, and then use an easy manner. Try to be calm. These are things to keep in mind when talking to someone that you care about. Try to make sure that you're engaging with them as much as they are with you. The first step is to be gentle. In other words, just try to be nice. This might seem a tad obvious, but sometimes it's important to remind yourself not to attack, not to judge them, not to use sarcasm. The reason I mention this is that sometimes we can have a hard time being positive and supportive for someone when things aren't going well in their life and things aren't going so well in our life either. Remember to not make things about yourself if you're talking about the other person's problems. Remember not to diminish their happiness or their unhappiness. Try to treat people the way that you want to be treated, the golden rule. Acting interested in what people have to say also goes a long way. That's a big part of the work that I do as a psychologist, for instance. It's not just about listening, it's about showing that you're listening. Eye contact, giving them space and not interrupting them, engaging, asking open questions, and facing the person. These are all things that you can do to demonstrate to a person that you're listening and you're interested in what they have to say. These types of things will create a sense of comfort and perhaps trust, and it will welcome them to share a bit more. It'll make it easier to create that bond with the other person. To add to that sense of interest, you can also validate the other person's feelings and thoughts through your words and actions. Try to see things from their point of view. Have an empathic demeanor if they share something that's personal, and behave in accordance with what they are saying. For example, if someone were to share with you a hardship they've experienced, try to validate their experience and show empathy. You could perhaps say something like, I can see that this was really hard for you to talk about, and I'm happy that you feel you can share this with me, or maybe I'm really proud of you for overcoming that. If some tears come, don't be shy to hug them or hand them some tissues, if they are comfortable with that as well. Another example is to be excited for them if they share good news. Experience the enthusiasm and the happiness with them. Be encouraging. Show them that you are in their corner. Show them that you're rooting for them. And then use an easy manner when talking. That can help lighten the mood and make someone feel comfortable. You can do this perhaps by using humor, something I like a lot, smiling, doing gestures of kindness or warmth or care. You're having fun, try to show it. It's all right, and even welcomed to have serious talks, but a relationship is also meant to be enjoyed. It's meant to be something where there's positive emotion as well. So perhaps try to make sure that you are growing a happy relationship that makes you and the other person feel enthusiastic to participate in it. Which of the give tips do you think that you might need to work on? Which ones come easier or harder for you? Are there some things that you find more challenging to do than the other things? Building connections that will support your recovery will make the pursuit of your goals a lot more manageable. A big risk for relapse is having external influences that make it more difficult to resist temptation. Changing your environment and your social surrounding to one that fits your goals and the lifestyle you want can make a really big difference. So I'd encourage you to be mindful of the people you surround yourself with. Take into consideration who they are and what they bring to the table. And you may need to seriously ask yourself whether certain relationships are beneficial and healthy for you, or whether they might be hindering you from growing, from healing, and from evolving in the ways that you want to. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this one, and look forward to seeing you in the next video.